Grandpa Birdwell was pretty active. He did die with a heart attack, though. He had chest pains. If he had them today, he wouldn't be any problem at all. He'd put them out of it and no telling how long he would have lived. I think he was 71 when he died. I think I'm right, 71 years old. But he was pretty much, I guess you call them drovers. He worked for big ranches and drove herds, up a trail or up and down the rivers and places where there's a lot of grass. And he'd go on to on a ranch where they need some help rounding up the cattle. He'd spend about maybe 2 weeks or a month with one big ranch, helping them gather all their cattle and putting them in. Because they didn't have hens like we got nowadays. They just herded them up, and the herdsmen would sit on their horses and just watch them, and if something started off, while they'd go bring them back in, keep them in a herd. And Grandpa Birdwell was quite a man on a horse. I never did see him ride but once or twice. But he had been many, many miles on a horse, driving cattle up the trail, and also rounding them up and branding them out on the range. And he worked for a big cattle mill. Had 2,000-3,000 head of cattle. And they'd have to brand in that time. They had to brand their cattle. And he would help rope them and tie them down and brand them and turn them loose. That was kind of like dishes on the cabinet now. If you wash one and put it right back where you got it from, you might wash it 3 or 4 times before you got through it. But that was the way they had cattle, calves, they'd herd your cattle in bunches, and then they'd cut out a bunch and start roping the calves and throwing them down and branding them and castrating the little bulls. And they just turn them loose again. And they'd be out there in the same herd, and you'd have to look to see if they got to where they tipped the ear or they put a notch in it or something, so you could tell by looking at their ears and not have to catch them and hold them to look and see if they'd been castrated or anything. But that was a long time ago. You got a lot of pictures in that box, over.
Yeah, I've got a couple more. Some of them are the Ewald side.
Okay, I was thinking the sun might fade them out.
Oh, got me. Couple more.
Yeah, that'd save them. What kind of box is that? Hat box? No.
No, it's a paper box.
Okay. Boy, it has to be strong.
Yeah, it is. It's a strong little box.
Because you put paper in that thing up to the top, and you got about
Heavy.
150 pounds.
Yeah, it's heavy. Well, how about Grandma Birdwell? Or what did y'all call her? Or you said she passed away before you?
Yeah, she passed away when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
And what did they call her?
I guess just Grandma Birdwell. I don't know. I don't remember. See, that was I guess when I was kind of small, because I can just barely once in a while, if I concentrate, I can see her face. But it's so far back. And so little could be done to keep somebody alive that it was quite a rare thing to have a grandma that everybody called by her name or something. And so I would have been like Matey and Jewel. Probably could have told you what they called her, but I can't do it. I can't remember anything because it just happened before I could recognize things.
What stories do you remember about her?
Huh?
What stories do you know about her?
Stories?
Like where she came from?
Well, no, I don't know except what I've been told. See, I never talked to her and I didn't know. But see, there's two stories in my mind, my memory about Grandma Birdwell. Let's see, I'm thinking the right thing, Birdwell, yeah. Is that she came from where was it she came from?
Sweden?
Sweden. She came from a country where the families were big families, you know, a lot of kids in the family. And I just can't remember exactly what the story is, except that I have in my mind that they had their kids were big enough to work. It didn't make any difference whether they were 12 or 13 or 14. Now it does. You can't do that. But at that time, that she was over in Sweden or Switzerland, wherever it was she's from. Where was it, Sweden?
Sweden.
Swede. She had worked for a family, just a kid, you know. She was just 10, 11 years old, 12 years old. She was working for a family and like doing the dishes and sweeping the floors and stuff like that when she was little. That's what I have in my mind back there. And so her family, I think they wanted to get passports and or clothes to travel or something. Anyway, they need some money. So they borrowed some money from this family, and she was working it off. And in the way I have it now, I may be wrong, but in that day and time, like they came from over there at Europe and came to the United States when they landed in America, she was still working for this family to pay off their debt. That's the way I have it in my mind. And she was met, and at that time the terminology was just slave. She was a slave to pay off that debt. In other words, they used the word slave. She was paid, but not. It was already something that they borrowed, and she was just working it off. In other words, that's the way I've got it down. Now, I don't know. I may be wrong, but when they unloaded the ship and the boat, whatever it was, they came home. She was turned over to this family as a slave. You know, yeah, she was working off the money that they owed. And so I think when she married Grandpa Birdwell, I can't remember what it was, one generation or the one before. I can't remember those things because I don't know that I knew them real well. But anyway, she was still working for this family. And she was 13 or 14 years old, I think, 14, something like that, maybe 15. But anyway, she stayed with him. And her real family was there too, you know, but she'd be with them most of the time. But when she'd go to this family, she was working off a debt, you know. When the ship hit shore, she was turned over to that family that they owed the money to, and she was treated more or less like what we would term as a slave. And she, I think she was what you'd call a teenager when she married Grandpa Birdwell. Now these things I'm just kind of put together that from the stuff that I knew. I don't know for sure if it's a true account of what actually happened or not, but she had a brogue when I first knew her. When I, she had a brogue that the Swedish people had. And it's, I can't even mock the way they did. They talked. And they had a brogue and they had a rhythm that they talked. You know what I mean?
A brogue?
A brogue may be the pronunciation of the words, but a rhythm would be how they say them in a kind of a, I don't know what you call it. I guess it's kind of like a song, a tune or something. It's had a rhythm at a time. You've heard Chinese talk, haven't you? How do they do? Huh?
I don't know.
Yeah, they kind of go by the tune.
Yeah.
They sing like they sound like they're singing. It is to me. It was. I don't know.
You said she passed away?
I think she died in maybe 25. I don't know. See, I was born in 16, and in 26 I'd been 10 years old. But at 25 I'd only be 11, I'd be on 9 or 8, somewhere around there. But I was already going to school I went to school when I was 6 years old. I started school when I was 5, rather. It was 5, it was 1st of September, and on the 5th of September, when my birthday came, I would be eligible to go to school. But I was ineligible to go to school because I wasn't considered to be 15 years old. 15, what am I saying? I wasn't considered to be the age that they allowed you to start school. But I did start. And they went ahead and gave it to me. Let me start school when I was actually 5 years old. And I turned 6 in the first week of school, see. So I got a little bit of an early start, but not much. And I was good in math all the way from A to Z, from the very first day of school. And when I started, I was in the 1st grade, and there was only 2 of us. 2 people in the 1st grade.
In Dilly or Divot?
Divot. Dorothy Zinsemeyer married Clyde Whitwell and had all the Whitwell boys. They didn't have a girl in their family. They just had a bunch of boys. There was old Red Whitwell, was that old big boy. Tommy Whitwell was the oldest. He was growing up Black Dutch. Yeah, he threw back to the Black Dutch, small bodies, and one of the what was he? No. Yeah, the Whip family. Maggie Whip was the same age as my older sister, Joy. And she's still living. She's living in a nursing home over here. And she and Estelle, you remember Estelle? Who stayed with us a whole lot?
I don't remember her.
Estelle Smith? Estelle McBee? Golly, I thought she was around our house and in the house and stayed with us a whole lot. Where everybody knew her. Estelle was out of the Smith family. There was Jess Smith and Richard Smith and S.D. Smith and Otis Smith. He married Grace, Joyce's older sister. And there was a whole raft of those Smiths. I can't remember what I had in mind, the connection I had with my birth date was the 5th of September, and I did start to school on September the 1st. So I was 4 days ahead of myself. I should have had to wait till the next year to start, but instead they said, well, it just took a few days, just go ahead and start. And so I started school. Boy, I got ahead of everybody when I got in the 4th grade and 5th grade, because I loved to study, I guess, because I caught on real good, too. I can remember having raising my hand up, and the teacher finally got to where she'd tell me to put my hand down. She didn't, you know. In other words, I wasn't learning anything. When I raised my hand, it's because I knew the answer. And it's like when I was going to the military school up there, Allen Military Academy. Well, I picked language and took Spanish because I knew it, you know.
Now, when did you learn Spanish?
Huh?
When did you first learn Spanish?
I learned Spanish when I was less than a year old. And I was talking Spanish better than most people when I was 5 years old. And I started school, and I'd get mixed up a little bit. I do today even sometimes. I think in Spanish, and the words come to me and it won't fit because I'm something in English, you know. But it's kind of hard to figure it out, but it's a handicap, really, is what it is. When you learn both languages and all of a sudden you want to say something in English and the only word you can think of is in Spanish to say what you want to. So it's kind of a problem, really. It's not a real funny thing when you get to it, because teachers, like old man Allen told me, he said, "You pinhead, you're not learning anything." And I said, well, I thought I was doing pretty good. Yeah, in Spanish, because you speak Spanish just like the people that are Spanish. And he said, I know you learned it from childhood because it comes naturally. You talk it just like they do. Which I did, and I realized right away what he meant. See, I wasn't learning anything when that Spanish class goes. So he made me go to... In fact, I've been this one time for punishment. He made me teach the second year college Spanish class. But it wasn't the Spanish that I was teaching. It was getting up in front of a crowd like that, and I just couldn't do it, man. I wasn't born to get up in front of a crowd and start teaching. I just froze, you know. And he realized after a while that was my problem. You know, I had, what do they call that? It's a kind of like you would say crowditis. You couldn't stand to be before a crowd. Anyway, I had an awful hard time. Well, the main thing was that that bunch of idiots out of Houston, when the teacher made me teach the class, man, they did everything in the world that they, you know, it wasn't supposed to be that way, but the teacher was sitting there and he didn't say anything. And what I finally wound up doing was just getting up there and freezing. I couldn't say a word. I'd look at him and maybe stutter a little bit, but I never could talk like I was supposed to. And I think that hurt me for the rest of my life, too, because those kids from Houston, they were merciless, inhuman. They were not people. They were animals. I never hated a bunch of guys in my life as I did those 2 or 3 out of Houston. They sure did give me a bad time. They made me where I couldn't hardly talk. I'd stutter. And the teacher recognized what was happening, so he quit putting me up there to do that because he was doing me a lot of harm. Old Professor Allen, his name was Nathaniel Allen, and we called him Nat Allen. Nat was his short. And he had a son, Nat Allen, the same age I was. Nathaniel Allen. And I told him one day, I said, Mr. Allen, I can't get up in front of this class, not the normal people in the class, but I said it's those 3 back there. He shook his head. Yeah, he realized that that's what he was. But they could intimidate me easier than I ever thought that anybody could. And I got up there and I'd get up and start to say something. I'd have my head down looking at the floor. I could not look out at the people. And it just ruined me. I mean, it tore me off. I lost, you might say, 3 months of school on account of those boys from Houston. And one of them, the three from Houston was 2 ex-majors. Major Ellis and Major Thompson, and Ellis was our major in school, in the what you call it, corps. You know, it was. Rabs Thompson was an ex-major, and Ellis was our major, so that's the way it is. And then he was a real smart aleck son of a gun, and he wasn't fit to kill. He was dark complected, had dark brown hair, and he was smart aleck. He was, he was the height. He reminded me of a rooster get up on post and crow. And he wasn't even as good as a dang rooster as far as I was concerned. What was his darn name? I can't remember his darn name now. Lockhart. Bob Lockhart. Lockhart. Called him Bob Lockhart. He was a smart aleck, overbearing son of a gun. And I had... my arches broke down from close order drill. And my feet swelled up, looked like 2 balloons I was walking on. It felt like it too. So they put me in, they gave me the card. So the card means that when they have close order drill, go to the drill field, you go to the hospital. You don't go to close order drill. Your feet, my feet, my arches broken down. Anyway, I was supposed to be in the hospital. But before the Corps came in, after their drill period, I'd have to get from the hospital up to my room. Or from my room to the hospital, I'll put it backwards. From my room to the hospital. And I had gone from the hospital up to my room while they were on the drill field, which was a good ways off. And I went up there to get a book. I wanted to look up something, and I had my books all upstairs in my bedroom on the table in a little book rack. Went up there to get a book, and I heard the drill. I heard somebody coming on the drill field, and I thought, man, they sure did have a short drill, or maybe I'm preoccupied them and I lost track of time. So I started down when I got out of the room, or my room, and started across the little hall to the stairs. I met this Bob Lockhart. He came running up the stairs, and I was going down. I went down the stairs, and of course, by the time he got back to the end of the hall where his room was, I was already downstairs and in the hospital. So when he came in from drill, really came in, they're supposed to come in at the end of the drill period. He had come up because he wanted to do something else. Anyway, when he came in, my corporal, drill squad commander, came and said, "King, they want you upstairs." I said, "Who wants me upstairs?" He said, "Well, go up there and see." I said, "Well, I don't know. Should I?" "Yeah," he said, "I think you better." So I went out the door and started, I went down the stairs. And let's see, how did it happen? I had to go back upstairs, get to his room. That's where it happened. Anyway, when I got downstairs, my squad commander's name was Thompson, too. And Thompson said, "King, you better go upstairs. I think they want you upstairs." And I said, "Well, who is it? Who wants me upstairs? Why do you have to go upstairs?" He said, "Go up there and see." So I hobbled back upstairs. And they said, "Bob Lockhart wants to see you in his room." So I went on up to his room. And something told me, said, I remembered meeting him when I went out, to go. And anyway, it was when I was going from my room back downstairs to the hospital, when I met him coming up. And I thought about that, and I thought, well, Bob Lockhart's the only one I've seen when I was. Anyway, I came on back from, I can't remember, let's see. My roommate was an old boy from Yancey, and his name was Lawrence Ross Yancey, and he was from where Tara is, where is it? What's the name of the town where Tara is? Anyway, that's where he was from. Lawrence Ross Yancey. And I saw him, and I said, "Well, what's going on?" He said, "I don't know, but something's going on in him." They should enjoy it. Anyway, someone came in, and he had shoes. He was a rich guy. His mama was rich. He had ships. Her daddy, her husband, I guess, left him to ships up and down the Gulf Coast. And he had left her these ships, and she had a lot of money. Old Bob Lockhart was her son. And they were dark complected, and I think they were kind of, I don't know whether he'd be Black Dutch or whether he'd be Italians or what. He looked Italian to me, and his mama did too. I never saw his daddy. But anyway, I went started upstairs. Got on upstairs and I went on back to his room. Back there were three of them, two ex-majors and the major. In the hospital room, I had a bed with hospital beds in it and everything. They were fancy, you know, they big shit from Houston. They got what they wanted. And I went on back there, and I walked in the room, and he's down on the floor, changing shoes. He's changing shoes every time he went to dinner, to the mess hall, and changing shoes to go to a class and all kinds of crap. He always had about 4 or 5 different pairs of shoes. We were lucky to have one pair during the Depression. Anyway, he made a remark when I said, somebody wanting me up here, and yep. I said, what? Somebody's going to get kicked out of school. I turned around and looked at him. I couldn't figure what it would be for me to be kicked out of school, you know, so I just said, well, let's see what it's all about. And he said, well, I had some money and left it on the bed and it's gone. So I met you coming down the stairs, so that's the reason I figured you got it. I said, look, Bob, are you accusing me of stealing? If you are, say it in plain words that you're a thief, you stole my money. Say it just one time. And he started to open his mouth, and before we got the second word out, I had cramped knuckles in his mouth. So he couldn't say another word.
You had
What you
the
got,
chicken?
Mom?
I need some help.
All right.
Okay.